So I guess we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody. This is the monthly general meeting of Tag Contributor Strategy. As such, we are under the CNCF Code of Conduct, which you're already familiar with, so stick to that. And with that, let's go ahead and get started with some working group review. We'll start off with mentoring, who already sort of filled in.
Would you like to take this one, Jay, or would you like me to go?
Oh, okay, you can take a night.
Okay. So we are currently in the process of refactoring our repo with an eye to eventually potentially making it a website, but we have got a V2 branch up and we've got a V2 branch and a sort of an overarching PR if you want to see the deploy preview. We may reach out to certain folks on this board to give it a second look, make sure that what we're doing is same. We're also looking ahead to KubeCon EU, looking at doing a speed mentoring type activity or helping with the speed mentoring type activities that are happening there. I wanted to throw it out to this group as well to ask if there is anything else that we should be discussing, if there's a maintainer track talk or whatnot that we're missing that you folks think might be valuable. Last time we did the introduction to the mentoring working group. So just asking for thoughts. I think the deadline for the calls for proposal is the 18th for KubeCon EU this year. I don't know if that is the.
But that's for main track. They haven't even opened maintainer sessions yet.
Right. So I was just going to ask about that next too. So I'm glad that's not. So we have some time to think about it.
Yeah.
And somebody put notes in as I was talking. So yeah, who put those notes in? And
I put them in. So we actually discussed the speed mentoring that was just organized by staff at the last KubeCon. The Kubernetes folks who participated in it actually had pretty good things to say about the event. Because there were actually a lot of interested people, and that differently from the one we did in San Diego, which was the last one that actually had any real traffic, attendees were actually kind of evenly split between brand new potential contributors and people who were already contributing who were looking to advance. So it's something for us to keep in mind if we're looking to help for the event. One of the things we discussed during the mentoring meeting was maybe doing an optional prep session for the newbies that would go immediately before speed mentoring, in order to eliminate some potential entering the room confusion.
I think it's a great idea. The one thing I would say is I don't think it should be immediately beforehand, because typically the mentoring tends to be on Friday near the end of the conference. And if you're going to get folks that are newbies that you want to get them over the initial hump, it's something that I think should probably happen very early in the conference so that they can approach the conference with additional information.
Okay.
An idea.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I'd be worried about there is how do we separate that from a introduction to KubeCon session? Because while such a thing should exist, it's not necessarily Tag Contributor Strategy's job. As opposed to, introduction to potentially being a contributor.
On the other hand, if we take it on under that context, then perhaps someone else will say, oh, this actually should belong to someone else, and take it from us.
I don't want to bet on that. I don't want to bet on that. Well, howdy, Victor. A new person. Welcome. Go ahead and put your name under attendees if you had something to discuss. We have an agenda up. Let me repaste that link. Oh, we got several people joining, probably from projects. So let's finish up with mentoring, and then we'll actually do introductions.
Sounds good. Jay, do you want to take the next,
Yeah.
CDI initiative?
Yeah, cool. Yeah, just quick update about what's happening over here. For those of you unaware, we're just broadening our scope a little bit to focus on include a community digital infrastructure project to create some practical examples and uses of open source in the community, and use that as a bit of a platform to raise awareness and hopefully increase participation in contributions. So as of this week, we've got a couple of community centers on board to sort of take part in a pilot to introduce localized clouds into the community, as well as university and some other industry representatives to create a water quality monitoring systems for Māori across the region. And so we're catching up with the national cloud provider next week to help support that, as well as Sumir from AgStack Linux to hopefully get some guidance and insight about some of the work that they're doing, how that might be sort of introduced here as well to support that. So identified some platforms like Grafana and Prometheus and things that might be conducive to that sort of work. So looking forward to seeing how that grows, and we'll keep you updated with any relevant progress. So that's it for me at the moment.
And then, oh, sorry, go on.
Yeah, Jay, something just occurred to me is, do you know Oren?
No.
Okay, she's a local tech activist, OpenStack person, Kubernetes person, runs cloudisland.nz and a bunch of other things. Let me connect you because I think she might be interested in all of this, and obviously has enormous amounts of knowledge that she could share
Awesome.
with your
you.
folks, like locally. So
That'd be great. Thank you. Definitely keen to connect.
And just lastly, we're starting our cycle for planning for next year, as we're in the second to last month of this one. So LFX Term 1 is going to start up March through May, but the call for proposals is going to be probably mid-January. We're giving folks quite a bit of time to sort of run through, get proposals up and running, take their time with mentee selection and whatnot. So that's going to be up and running fairly soon. And I just took a look at the GSOC 2023 timeline, and it's there are some early deadlines in January that we need to be aware of. And actually, just a note on 2022's GSOC, this on the 7th, the last of our extended mentees submitted their final submission, and so we're just waiting on the mentor to finalize their evaluation. That'll be due on Monday, and then that'll be the closeout of Google Summer of Code for us. At which point I'll probably talk with the marketing team or the blog team here at the CNCF and make a public blog post and tweet and all the rest of that.
okay, any other questions for mentoring?
Is there part of what we'd like to do for the mentoring team? Sorry to cut in on question time. I would, if anyone is interested in the process, I'm expecting to sort of train Jay and Uche up on the process for doing the particularly the LFX stuff. If there's anyone else who's interested in that type of work, in helping out, or if you know anybody who's interested in helping out in that capacity, let us know, and we'll include you in those emails.
Okay, that feels like something you should throw out on the mailing list in the Slack channel as well.
Yes, that's actually a good spot for it. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Okay, so before we go back to the agenda, let's have a round of introductions because we have some new folks with us. I'm Josh Burkus. I'm co-chair of TAG Contributor Strategy and also of the governance working group. And then next one in my window is Ryan.
Hello, I'm Ryan. I'm with the II group from New Zealand, and we're working on various things, Kubernetes and CNCF, to help people get on board. And let's do Noah.
Hi, I'm Noah Abrahams. I'm a TPM at Oracle, and my day job is onboarding contributors, which is remarkably aligned with this group. I'll send it over to Nate.
Hello, I'm Nate Waddington. I'm a developer advocate with the CNCF, and my two primary roles, I suppose, there are helping projects organize and write their documentation. And I am a co-chair of the mentoring working group here, helping organize and recruit folk to be both mentees and mentors. I'll throw it over to Carolyn.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Van Slyke. I'm a developer at Microsoft. I lead the contributor growth working group here with the TAG, and I'm also a maintainer for Porter. Victor, would you like to go?
Yeah, I'm actually I'm independent right now, so just to learning actually where to contribute. New to CNCF, actually trying to figure out how to contribute. That's what I'm trying.
Okay. Well, welcome. You're going to hear, you've already heard several opportunities, at least for contributing with TAG Contributor Strategy. So, and you will hear more. David, you want to go?
Sure. Yeah. Hi, I'm Dave Sudia. I'm a developer advocate at Ambassador Labs. We've donated telepresence and emissary ingress to CNCF. I was at the emissary pavilion at KubeCon, and we were literally across, 6 feet away from the TAG Contributor Strategy booth at the pavilion. And so I was like, hey, that sounds interesting, because it's kind of a personal passion of mine to help emissary and telepresence sort of move up from the sandbox through graduation process. And I think one of the places we need the most, things we need the most for that are more maintainers and more contributors and adopters. So this felt like a really good group to join. So I'm mostly here to listen today, but that's why. And I guess that goes to Jay.
Kia ora, my name is Jay Tihima. I'm also part of II down here in New Zealand, supporting with community engagement and also working alongside Nate as co-chair of the mentoring working group.
Okay, that's everybody. And actually from David's introduction, it's natural enough for us to go into contributor growth working group. I don't know. I don't really have anything to report, but plans?
So I've been out, unfortunately. I've been sick for like the last month. So I was hoping maybe we could talk about, is anyone here able to talk about contributor infrastructure? Well, we may not have the right people, unfortunately.
One point on contributor infrastructure, Caroline, I don't know if you had a chance to see the work on the Power GitHub Actions, which is coming along quite nicely. So if I can share a link later, that is working. Some of the plugins already working. We're just looking at some more to get a plugin YAML to work. And then when that works, we can actually roll it out. There was a need in one of the CNCF projects that we wanted to roll it out, but it didn't quite fit the bill yet. But we're keen, we'll probably roll it out in a few repos next year. I think Rob Coulter also did a presentation to a few people at KubeCon, which was very interested in the beauty of Prow things without the difficulty of maintaining the underlying infrastructure. So yeah, that's pretty cool if it's going to start working. Almost there.
Oh, that's exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing that.
I'll share some links later.
Okay. I'll point out that the contributor growth monthly meeting would normally fall on American Thanksgiving, I believe. So, are you going to try to reschedule that for this month?
I wasn't planning because it's super hard to reschedule and doodle and find a time that people can meet. And I don't know, like, I'm not aware of any ongoing stuff that we need to coordinate with right now. Maybe I'll just reach out to people in Slack and see if anyone's blocked or needs support and just kind of handle this asynchronously. I think that may go better.
Okay. Okay. Anything else for contributor growth?
No, sorry. It's
Okay.
been a little dead lately.
No, and Catherine's not here, and okay. Governance. We finally merged the updated sub-project template, which includes feedback from operator framework, which has adopted that template, as well as the expanded form of the documentation. And so now we need to actually do the other two templates, as well as our other current open to-dos. Is a document that I've started on generically how to run a steering committee election, and also updating our older governance advisory documents to actually have links to the templates, which they don't currently. So that's actually what we kind of have open, aside from direct project help, which has been a big part of governance working group lately. I will say, actually, for governance at least, the TOC has been doing a good job of notifying us whenever they do a review of a project applying for graduation and they decide they need governance help. So, so that stuff is coming to us, which is why we've been doing a lot of direct project intervention. The TOC is discussing process changes to matriculation that would actually make that a non-optional part of the process. So, and would probably involve contributor growth as well, to actually look at community health. That might happen at the incubating stage, where our working group would actually sign off on that part of the due diligence. Yeah, I'm trying to catch up on taking notes on my own speaking. Any questions on governance? Okay, we just had a meeting last week, so which ended up being mostly about mentorship because of who showed up. The other one is maintainer circle, which falls to me again because we don't currently have a lead for maintainer circle. We're really going to try to get some online maintainer circles going. One of my questions for the mentoring team here is, I've been thinking, as you know, for a long time, of doing one on mentoring for the projects. Is there a specific timing thing we need to figure out there? Because I was thinking maybe January because of Google Summer of Code. But I don't, I don't know the timing of all of the programs, because there's also Outreachy, there's also LFX.
So I have a quick question when there's time for a question on there, which is,
If it's about maintainer circle, go ahead right now.
Yeah. So what is involved in in leading that, because I was looking at the added on GitHub, and there's like status is proposed, but then if I click on that, it's like a closed issue from 2 years ago. And
Yeah,
so
okay,
it's hard from the outside to see like what the status is or what still needs to be done.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, and the problem with that is that the people who started Maintainer Circle left and are no longer terribly active with the CNCF. So
That checks
they
out.
kind of left it in that state. The so what's going on right now is, the Maintainer Circle primarily focuses around regular topical events where we have unrecorded things with a particular topic and some kind of a facilitator from the community who knows that topic well, who is going to lead a discussion among maintainers about that. So like the last one we did was about reviewing code and the difficulties of reviewing code and keeping up with reviews and other stuff. And that was an in-person one in Valencia, and we actually haven't had one since then. And we both have in-person ones at KubeCon and online ones, on Zoom with breakouts. So with that model, the main work is finding an appropriate facilitator, finding somebody who,
Sure.
Figuring out a topic that enough maintainers care about and are currently struggling with or have something to say about, finding a facilitator who knows that topic well, and then scheduling everything and actually running the session. The last is something that it's easier to get help with, right? Because you can probably pull somebody from Tag CS to help with the actual logistics of running the session. Because that's actually what happened in Valencia. The last Valencia is Paris set it up, but I ran it. And where we've been stuck on is the actual scheduling portion of it. But for that matter, if somebody was really interested in Maintainer Circle as a maintainer, and they said, these events have been nice, but they're not mainly what we need. We really want to do this other thing. That is completely open, right? The whole purpose of a Maintainer Circle is just to have open and frank discussions between maintainers, regardless of how those discussions happen.
Okay. Well, that sounds interesting to me. So we don't have to talk about it in depth right now, but I'd be happy to continue that conversation.
Okay. Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Okay, and yeah, and I will follow up with you on Slack and everything else. And we'll get something set up. For whatever you want to do and what level, and it, depending on your time availability, it can even be like we're at a state now where if you don't even have to like take on the Maintainer Circle team in general, if you just said I want to run one Maintainer Circle on this topic, it would be an enormous help.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Let's chat about it. I'm in CNCF Slack. I'll put in the chat what my handle is. So you can find me. But
okay. Cool.
Yeah. Cool.
Awesome. Thanks. Okay. Next up, getting the word out campaign. Catherine put in a whole bunch of notes here, which is great. And a couple of other people. So we start with actually the Project Pavilion at KubeCon, where we actually had a pod in the Project Pavilion. The comment there was exhibit hall rather empty, unfortunately. I would actually say in general, the exhibit hall was not a terrific success for the vendors, but actually I would say for our pod at the Project Pavilion, it was extremely useful. I found that CNCF projects really used it, partly due to Catherine's direct outreach efforts, but CNCF projects really used it as a, hey, I've been meaning to talk to Tag Contributor Strategy about this thing, and therefore I will find them. And so I would actually say it's something that we should, if we can pull it off in terms of staffing, plan to do for Amsterdam as well.
Plus one, yeah.
Because because even for the very specific, right? I went out on Twitter and I said, hey, I'm head of governance working group. If your project needs to discuss something about governance, these are the hours I'll be in the project pavilion. And at least 4 projects came to talk to me. So so I think from that perspective, it was really a success. On top of which, when Catherine was there, she went around and walked around the project pavilion and talked to all the projects. Which also had a really sort of net benefit. I don't think we were successful promoting the survey at KubeCon because you can really only promote one thing at a time, and ultimately talking to projects about their needs was less important than the survey. Although Catherine was right, was pointing out that we can canvass the kiosks even if we don't have one. But I think having one is really useful for people to come find us. And I think it won't be hard to get CNCF to agree to that unless they're having space problems.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, anecdotally, I was going to on. Oh, go ahead, Nick.
I was just going to say my I was going to throw in my anecdote too. But it was we didn't have a whole lot of traffic, but the folks who did come by had deep and interesting conversations with us about specific issues that they were having. So I felt from my perspective, it was while not we didn't get an opportunity to really sort of span that survey out, the conversations that we had, I think, in my case, were helpful and worthwhile. So.
Yeah, mine was just, I think it was worth having the booth because I was going to try to come to the Meet the Tags event on Friday, but then couldn't. And so it was helpful to be able to go to that pavilion booth, at any time rather than that sort of being the only opportunity to come. That's why I'm here now. And I think just generally to that point, the retrospective from both a vendor, because we're vendor and maintainer, was that sort of because you didn't have the flood of people coming in because they had to get to the food, but on the flip side, anyone who did get into that hall was there for a reason. And so both on the open source side and the vendor side, the quality of people coming by to talk was really high, the quality of conversations. We did kind of wish that on the pavilion side, the whole Monday keynote was maintainers, maintainers, maintainers. And then it was kind of tell people there's a pavilion, because it kind of felt like a lot of people didn't even know it existed. But yeah.
I'll pass that one along. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Okay. So other things, contributor survey update. We're closing contributor survey now. I just got the data dump from Chad. We got, let's see, what were the numbers here? 158 respondents with a 48% completion rate. So one thing that actually told us is it wasn't actually worth keeping it open through KubeCon because we only got an additional 40 responses without any higher completion rate. It's an interesting thing for surveys in the future because that's a lower completion rate than I've seen from Kubernetes community surveys. And so I'm wondering what was wrong there. But that's not really important for the tag. Have not had time to compile results yet to see if there's anything interesting in them. Because the graphs that SurveyMonkey exports are all uncorrelated, right? They don't they don't check whether or not there's any correlation between, say, the friction points that people are experiencing and where they are on the contributor curve. And that's actually what I want to do. Although I need to have the caveat that we don't have a whole lot of volume. Effectively, we have, whatever it is, 75 complete surveys. So I have to be careful not to divide it into too much detail because you end up with responses being one respondee, which is never statistically significant. And then once I've actually chewed through this, the other thing is I'll be sharing out, I'll want other people to help because we set this up survey to partly be qualitative. We've got a bunch of essay questions in there. And so I'll put out a call in the Slack for people to help with going through those. Because part of the goal is to actually read those essay questions because we have like a graph and we have a checkbox question of where you're running into trouble contributing, et cetera. But we really want people's stories from there. The stories are more important, but that does mean a lot of reading. So what was it? 60% of respondees said that they plan to contribute more. We'll see how that works out. And we'll be working with the CNCF on whatever they want to blog about from the survey. But our main purpose in participating in putting the survey together was to try to target improving things for CNCF contributors. So more to come. One of the things about this is, then how we're going to use it. But the question of how we're going to use it, I think, kind of depends on whether or not we can find any significant information out of it. I mean, obviously, we're going to use it regardless to inform contributor growth, particularly. But if there's anything interesting in it, then we might do a blog post. We might, feature it in our proposal for a maintainer session for KubeCon Amsterdam. We might do something else. But first, we need to see if there's any data there. Any questions about survey?
No, but I'm happy to help out if you need
Okay.
extra hands for reading and compiling and such.
Okay. Cool. Weekly tweet for CNCF to retweet. What do we want to put out there this week? Potential new things is we have the new documentation up on the sub-projects template, so we could actually tweet that. Alternately, I don't know if we have a deadline for mentoring that we actually want to emphasize.
I have a tangent question once we get past this.
Okay. Any thoughts? If nobody else suggests anything else, I'll do the template documentation.
I think that sounds good.
Okay.
My tangent is on questioning whether do we want to expand beyond Twitter. I've seen a lot of folks going to Floss at Mastodon or places like that.
Yeah.
It might be a bigger question than we have time for, but it might be worth considering.
Yeah.
Chris, I'm gonna mangle his name. Chris A. Said that he and the LF are going to be looking into maybe having an instance for the CNCF.
Cool.
So we may just want to hang tight for a week or two and give them a chance to catch up, because a lot of projects have said that they're interested in having a presence, but they'd like it to be associated with the CNCF and not burdening or making other instances weird with brand presences, to be honest, as opposed to people, because kind of a different culture.
Yeah, Karen Chu and I were talking about that around Helm and stuff. Yeah.
It's specifically prohibited on some servers.
Yep.
Like one of the things I was pointing out is, I'd say the most popular server among Kubernetes contributors right now is HackyDerm, and HackyDerm specifically prohibits any brand accounts. So.
Yeah, and Chris, Nova specifically said that it would be a home, it could be a temporary home for CNCF projects, because that's not a brand, right? It's open source. It's something that we all kind of have a collective interest in. But it felt, even within that conversation, we were talking about it more being a temporary home, and then the account could get migrated to the long-term home later. It's definitely something that's come up several times on HackyDerm. Yeah.
It's not, yeah, and it's not an emergency. So by the way, for the Linux Foundation, what this is hinging on, or for the CNCF, what it's hinging on is they are interviewing candidates for a new project support position that's going to focus on ambassadors, among other things. And it would be natural for this person to also manage CNCF's Mastodon presence. So it's basically waiting on new staff starting, which is the correct course.
Yeah.
Because the last thing we want is a CNCF Mastodon server that nobody is managing. That would be a disaster. So,
absolutely, I completely agree. And I always love here. It sounds. I love the size of the CNCF. I don't know all of the things, so I love hearing that plans are afoot.
yeah. So, yeah, and then that would feed into us potentially having, say, a tag contributor strategy account. Because we did not do that with Twitter. Honestly, partly because I already manage like 7 brand accounts on Twitter, and I just did not want to add one more. But I feel like Mastodon would be a little bit different. Particularly if it was a CNCF managed Mastodon.
Yeah, I really hope we can make that happen.
Okay. Okay, other discussion. So we actually have some time to say, for example, delve into whether or not we can help telepresence attracting contributors. If you wanted to talk about that. David?
Sorry, I was typing something. My brain was not there. I didn't realize you were.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I mean, I don't think that this is a acute issue right now. It was mainly. I think it's. I'm still kind of trying to get a sense, a lay of the land of where we're at with emissary and telepresence in terms of being on the ladder. Emissaries in incubation, telepresences in sandbox. I think. I think where we're at with telepresence is specifically probably looking for more adopters right now, just because that's how we would get up to incubation. Emissary might be the place that we're really looking specifically to bring in more maintainers, but I don't know. I'm learning about the inherent conflicts between vendors that provide projects right now, and how people on the business side feel about more maintainership. So. Yeah, I mean, I think right now, like I'm still doing research, and part of my research is being here and listening to these conversations. But I think it's something I'll probably bring up again at another time when I feel like I have a better handle on what I'm really asking for or looking for.
Okay, it's fine. We try to leave time open in the meetings for projects to show up and ask for things. Part of the goal here.
Cool. Yeah.
So
yeah.
So that'll show up. If you can target a contributor growth meeting for emissary, that would be ideal timing. But it's since we rotate monthly among the working groups, if it ends up being somebody else's meeting, it's still fine.
Sure, but that's the kind of thing I'm here to learn,
yeah.
right? Is like contributor growth is the best time to bring those kinds of questions. So,
yeah. It's actually the one thing that we don't actually help with is the adopter thing. We can provide some general advice, but it's not part of our mission.
Totally. That's about the tool being useful. Yeah.
Except to the extent that, hey, we have some general advice on advertising yourself to more users because you need users, because no one's going to become a contributor if they don't use it. So
totally. Yeah. Yeah, and it never hurts to have more maintainers on a project, early on, because it just, I think, speeds up all the rest of it. So I think I'm interested for both, but emissary definitely, I think that's kind of the main requirement we would have for moving up out of the incubation at this point, is really a broader maintainer set. So
and so you can actually come to places, and this includes advice of, hey, I could really use some business arguments for why it's important that we make room for more maintainers, right? To because several
sure.
of us have had direct experience with that. And for that matter, you can talk to the mentorship folks of, okay, we have people who are interested in being maintainers. How do we advance them to that level?
Totally.
the,
Yeah.
Yeah. And the governance about, hey, we don't actually have a contributor ladder. How do we actually go about adopting one? So so all that help is available when you're ready for it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I think that's great to know. I think my next steps will be to kind of go to the GitHub and read through some of these things. You know, go to the site, read through some of these things, because I'm really just educating myself about all that right now. And then that gives me questions to ask our team. Hey, do we have a contributor ladder? Right. That I don't have answers to right now. So
Cool.
yeah, I think I've got a lot of good starting resources now for sure.
Awesome. Okay, and Victor, did you find something you'd like to get involved in?
I'm still looking. I don't know if time after the meeting to just for chance for a few minutes.
Sure. Either here or on Slack.
Okay.
Actually, probably better on Slack because this is being recorded. If that's okay with you.
Yeah, maybe later.
Are you Victor Liu?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, I've tagged people. Okay, does anybody have anything else? Okay, well, thanks everybody for coming. Good to have you back, Carolyn.
Thanks.
Well, have a good
Thanks for
rest of
having
your day, everyone.
And I will see everybody online.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
See you.
Thanks.
Cheers all.